Some mysteries refuse to stay buried. And this one kicks off with a small town, a local girl, and a disappearing act that even Houdini would tip his hat to. Welcome to Harmony Creek, Oregon. Population: just enough to have a town gossip, but not enough to keep a secret for long. It's the kind of place where the biggest news is usually a runaway cow or Mrs. Gable winning the county bake-off for the third year straight. Life moves at the speed of a tractor on a Sunday afternoon. That is, until the day Emily Carter vanished. Emily was 17. She had that bright, infectious energy that made everything around her seem a little less dull. She was sharp as a tack, with a smile that could melt the winter snow right off the Cascade Mountains. She was the kind of girl who could charm a raccoon out of its dinner, and now she's gone. Poof, like a magician's assistant. Except nobody saw the trick. Her routine was as predictable as the morning rooster crow. School, a part-time shift at the local diner where she'd sling hash browns and smiles. Then home to doodle in her sketchbook. She dreamed of big cities and art galleries, but for now, Harmony Creek was her world. Her friends said she was her usual cheerful self that Tuesday. They'd talked about the upcoming prom, laughed about Mr. Henderson's toupee, and made plans for the weekend. Nothing was out of place. Her mum, Sarah, remembers Emily grabbing an apple on her way out the door, yelling, "See you for dinner." It was a promise that would hang in the air, unanswered. When she didn't show up for her shift at the diner, a small seed of unease was planted. The diner owner, a gruff but good-hearted man named Sal, figured she was just running late. But as minutes turned into an hour, that unease started to grow roots. Her friends started a group chat, the messages flying back and forth. Has anyone seen Em? Did she say she was going somewhere? The answers were all the same: no. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle the edges of their small-town comfort. Her parents called her phone again and again, each ring echoing in the silent house, each unanswered call tightening the knot of fear in their chests. They called the sheriff's office, their voices trembling. Sheriff Brody, a man who'd seen more fishing disputes than felonies, assured them he'd look into it. But even he couldn't shake the bad feeling that was settling over Harmony Creek like a thick fog. By the time the sun set that evening, it was as if she had vanished into thin air, and the town was about to hold its collective breath. The next morning the news spread like wildfire. Emily Carter was missing. Suddenly, the quiet streets didn't feel safe anymore. Neighborly smiles were replaced with looks of suspicion. Every rustle in the woods, every unfamiliar car, became a source of dread. The search began. Volunteers from every corner of the county showed up, their faces grim with determination. They combed the forests surrounding the town, their calls of Emily swallowed by the towering Douglas firs. Sheriff Brody and his 2 deputies set up a command post at the town hall, the map on the wall quickly becoming a web of pins and highlighted areas. They questioned her friends, her teachers, anyone who might have seen something, anything. But the trail was cold from the start. It was like she had stepped out of her life and into another dimension. Her car was still in the school parking lot. Her wallet and keys were at home. Her last social media post was a picture of her cat, captioned "My lazy study buddy." There was no sign of a struggle, no note, no clue, just an Emily-shaped hole in the fabric of their community. The local news crews descended, their vans lining Main Street, turning the town's private nightmare into a public spectacle. The gossip around the water cooler wasn't about bake-offs anymore. Now it was hushed whispers and wild theories. Did she run away? Was she taken? As days turned into a week, the hope that had fueled the initial search began to flicker, replaced by a gnawing, desperate fear. The woods fell silent, the volunteers went home, and a heavy quiet settled over Harmony Creek. But a town like this doesn't just forget one of its own. Her face was on posters stapled to every telephone pole and in every shop window. Her smile, once a source of light, now a haunting reminder of what was lost. The family held press conferences, their pleas for her return echoing across the nation. Yet, nothing. The case grew colder with each passing day. It was as if the earth had opened up and swallowed her whole. The official investigation stalled, the leads dried up, and Sheriff Brody was left with a folder full of dead ends. The world moved on, but Harmony Creek remained frozen in that moment, forever waiting for Emily to come home. That's where our story really begins. Years later, long after the news crews have left and the posters have faded, some secrets are itching to be dug up. A deathbed confession from a man 100 miles away, a secret diary discovered in the attic of Emily's old house, and a series of anonymous letters sent to the local newspaper. These threads, seemingly unrelated, are about to be pulled, and what they unravel will shake the very foundations of this quiet little town. Because someone in Harmony Creek knows what happened to Emily Carter, and they've been keeping that secret for a very, very long time. The truth is often more terrifying than the mystery itself, and it's buried just beneath the surface, waiting for someone to start digging. What really happened on that quiet Tuesday afternoon? The answer is closer than anyone thinks. Stick around for part 2, where we uncover the first shocking clue that blows this case wide open. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. The sun beat down, but a chill had settled over the town of Harmony Creek. Word of Sarah's disappearance spread like wildfire, fanned by the winds of gossip and fear. At first it was just a few concerned neighbors, then the local police, and soon, What felt like the entire town was combing through the dusty streets in the surrounding desert landscape. They started at her small, neat house. Everything looked so normal, it was unnerving. Her favorite yellow bicycle was propped against the white picket fence, exactly where she always left it. Her worn leather backpack, filled with books and half-finished sketches, sat right by the front door, as if she had just dropped it on her way in. The mail was still in the box. Inside, a half-empty cup of coffee sat on the kitchen counter, cold to the touch. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The police chief, a stout man named Miller, who'd known Sarah since she was a little girl, scratched his head. "It's almost as if she'd been swallowed by a tumbleweed," he muttered to a deputy, trying to inject a bit of gallows humor into the tense air. "Or maybe just up and moved to Texas without telling anyone but her family." Their faces etched with worry quickly dismissed that. Sarah loved this town. She was the desert rose of Harmony Creek. This was her soil, her home. She wouldn't just leave. As the search party fanned out, the first strange clues began to surface. A set of unusual footprints was found in the soft dirt behind her house, leading away towards the vast, open desert. They weren't Sarah's small, boot-like tracks. These were larger, deeper, and spaced irregularly, as if someone was walking with a limp or carrying something heavy. Then, about 100 yards from the footprints, a young volunteer stumbled upon something snagged on a thorny creosote bush. It was Sarah's favorite silk scarf, the one with the hand-painted bluebirds her grandmother had given her. She never went anywhere without it. It was her good luck charm. Why would it be out here tangled and torn? Back at the station, investigators were looking at her phone records. Most of the recent calls were to her family and friends, but there were a few odd messages. One was a garbled voicemail from an unknown number, just static and what sounded like a faint, rhythmic tapping. Another was a series of text messages from a week prior, a heated exchange with someone saved only as J. The messages were cryptic, talking about a promise and not being able to wait any longer. The final message from Jay was chilling. "If you won't come to me, I'll come to you." Who was Jay? And what promise were they talking about? The days bled into a week. The search widened, helicopters buzzing overhead, their spotlights cutting through the inky blackness of the desert night. Posters with Sarah's smiling face were stapled to every telephone pole and storefront window, her bright eyes a stark contrast to the growing despair in the town. Every potential lead, every half-baked theory from a concerned local, was followed up with painstaking diligence. They questioned her ex-boyfriend, who had a solid alibi. They looked into transient workers who had passed through town. They even consulted a psychic a well-meaning aunt had brought in, but nothing stuck. Every path they took, every clue they examined, seemed to lead to a dead end, circling back to the same chilling, unanswerable question that now hung over Harmony Creek like a permanent storm cloud. Where did Sarah go? Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow for the next part of this story. Just when it felt like the town was getting a grip, the story started to get weird. A few folks, huddled over lukewarm coffee at the diner, began sharing whispers that didn't quite line up. Old Man Hemlock, who's usually more concerned with his prize-winning pumpkins, swore he saw a shadowy figure lurking near the old quarry at the edge of town, right around the time she disappeared. He said it moved faster than any person he'd ever seen. Then, a night shift trucker, just passing through, mentioned a strange, dark vehicle with no plates that tore down Main Street late that night. It was moving so fast, all he saw was a black blur and the wind had kicked up. The sheriff just sighed into his notepad. It was the kind of situation that had the whole town second-guessing their life choices, and the raccoons, apparently, were still happily stealing pie from windowsills completely unfazed. But it wasn't just conflicting stories. Things started happening that made the hairs on your arms stand up. The girl's parents would get phone calls, but on the other end there was only crackling static, like a storm brewing miles away. Their dog, a normally friendly golden retriever, would suddenly start barking at an empty corner of the room, its fur on end. Then, small things from her bedroom began to go missing. A silver locket her grandmother gave her, a worn-out copy of a favorite book, a single forgotten earring from her nightstand. These weren't valuable items, but they were hers. It was as if someone, or something, was slowly erasing her memory from the house itself. Each clue, each strange event, just opened more questions than it answered. And by now, everyone in town was asking the same terrifying question. Had she simply vanished, or was something else entirely at play? The investigation was officially at a standstill. The sheriff, looking more tired than a man who'd just wrestled a bear, had exhausted every lead. He'd interviewed everyone, chased down every rumor, and all he had to show for it was a notebook full of contradictions and a town full of scared people. The official theory remained that she'd run away, but no one really believed it anymore. Not with the strange phone calls and the missing trinkets. The silence in town was deafening, a heavy blanket of unease that settled over everything. It felt like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The newspapers moved on to other headlines. The TV crews packed up their vans. But for the people of Harmony Creek, the story was far from over. It was a wound that refused to close. And then, a breakthrough came from the most unlikely of places. It wasn't the police. or a private investigator. It was the girl's younger brother, a quiet kid who spent most of his time drawing in his sketchbook. He'd been looking through his sister's old laptop, just wanting to feel close to her, when he found it. Tucked away in a hidden folder, protected by a password, he luckily knew her cat's name, and her birthday was a series of video diaries. The first clip flickered to life. It was her, smiling into the camera, but her eyes held a shadow of fear. She started to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "If you're watching this," she began, "it means I'm gone. But I didn't run away. I need you to know what's been happening." It started with the dreams. In her video diaries, she painted a picture that was a world away from the Harmony Creek everyone knew. She spoke of recurring nightmares, dreams so vivid she'd wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. In these dreams, she was running through a dense, dark forest. The same woods that bordered their town, but twisted and menacing. The trees had no leaves, their branches like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. And she wasn't alone. She was being chased. She never saw what it was, only heard a sound she described as leaves skittering across dry pavement, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. She started avoiding sleep, drinking coffee until she was shaking, but the dreams always found her. She then confessed something that sent a shiver down her brother's spine. She had started seeing things, even when she was awake, a flicker of movement in her peripheral vision. A tall, slender shadow standing at the edge of the woods when she looked out her window at night. At first, she thought it was just her tired mind playing tricks on her, but then, the shadow started getting closer. She'd see it across the street when she walked home from school, or standing among the headstones in the old church cemetery. No one else ever seemed to notice it. She tried to tell her friends, but they just laughed it off, telling her she was watching too many scary movies. She felt completely alone, haunted by something she couldn't explain or prove. The final video diary was recorded the night before she disappeared. The camera was shaky, her face pale. Her eyes darted towards the window every few seconds. "It's not just a shadow anymore," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I saw its face in the reflection of the window. It doesn't have eyes, it's just smooth." She took a shaky breath. "It's been leaving things for me. Dead leaves on my windowsill. A single black feather on my pillow. It wants me to follow it. I can feel it calling to me. In my head, it's a promise of something ancient." She looked directly into the camera, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm not running away. I'm being taken. If I'm not back by morning, go to the old sycamore tree by Miller's Pond. The one with the carving. Look under the roots." The video cut to static. Her brother stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He knew the tree. They used to play there as kids. He grabbed a flashlight and ran out the door, the girl's last words echoing in his mind. He reached the old sycamore as the moon climbed high in the sky. The carving, a crude heart with their initials, was still there. He dropped to his knees and started digging frantically under the exposed roots. His fingers hit something hard. It was a small wooden box with trembling hands. He opened it. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, wasn't a note or a clue. It was an old, tarnished silver compass. But the needle wasn't pointing north. It was spinning wildly, uncontrollably, as if searching for something it couldn't find. And as he held it, a cold wind whipped through the trees, carrying with it a faint, dry, skittering sound. The sound of leaves on pavement. He was no longer just looking for his sister. So what really happened to her? Let's sift through the theories. The simplest one. She ran away, but honestly, that just doesn't add up. Why leave behind her wallet, her ID, her favorite horse? Everything she would need to start a new life was still sitting in her room, gathering dust. It feels more like she vanished into thin air, not like she packed a bag and left. Then there's the darker possibility. Abduction. Was it someone she knew? A seemingly friendly face in town with a terrible secret? Or was it a complete stranger? Someone just passing through who saw an opportunity? The town was small, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. But that can also mean secrets are easier to hide, buried under layers of familiarity. The lack of any ransom note, any communication at all, makes this theory both terrifying and frustratingly incomplete. And finally, we venture into the territory that sends a shiver down your spine. The unexplained. Some locals whisper about strange lights seen in the sky around the time she disappeared. Others talk about old legends, stories passed down through generations about the land itself, about things that are best left undisturbed. Something supernatural. The logical part of your brain screams no. But when all logical paths lead to a dead end, you start to wonder, what do you think really happened to the girl? Was it someone from town, a stranger, or something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments below. We read every single one. One thing's for sure. In this town, secrets don't stay buried for long. And some mysteries, well, they just ride off into the sunset without saying goodbye. If you were captivated by this story, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us next week for another faceless mystery you won't forget. Thanks for watching.